Thank you so much. And thank you for having me, for me to impact my knowledge to everybody in this community. Thank you very much. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining this session. We're going to be sharing SDG goals as had been previously explained. Um, I would have loved to see some faces before we start. I know maybe the bandwidth will not allow you to put on your videos throughout the session, but at least let me know that somebody is there and I'm connecting and I'm not alone here. If you don't mind, you can just switch on your camera for just a few seconds and let us say hello to each other. Thank you very much. Yeah, good to see you. You're welcome. Yeah, I will just delve straight into it by sharing my screen. I hope I have the ability to share. Yes. Please just give me a moment. Let me share my screen. Okay, I'm good now. Yes, so today we are going to be talking about the Sustainable Development Goals and the contents that I'll be sharing with you today. Just a brief introduction, what the Sustainable Development Goals are, the targets, the SDG targets, and I will talk specifically about the role of energy in achieving Sustainable Development Goals and some energy SDG targets. Don't worry, I'm focusing on energy, but it's just for us to have an explanation because we can't really go through all of them. There are 17, as you have earlier heard, but we just look at energy as a sample. Then we just see about one or two projects that are related to innovation in SDG and how we can incorporate SDG in our daily life. So as a form of intro, I would just want somebody to share with me. You can unmute yourself and just let me know what you understand by the Sustainable Development Goals. I know we are going to talk about it, but if you have any idea, what is your idea about it so that we can start the conversation? Is anybody raising his or her hands? You can unmute yourself. Okay. Yes, I see you. Please unmute yourself and speak. I hope you have the ability to unmute. Victor, do you want to unmute yourself?
Okay, so Olayemi, you raise your hand first. You can go afterward. Victor would go.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Gundele Olayem Samuel, a recent petroleum
Okay.
engineering graduate from Bayero University, Kano. Okay.
Uh, I can't seem to hear you
Olayemi,
anymore. Are you still there?
I think he muted by mistake. Olayemi, we can't hear you
Okay.
anymore.
Okay. Can Victor speak? Victor, can you speak?
Can you hear me now?
Okay, ma.
Okay, yes, I can hear you.
Okay. It's still Olayemi.
Olayemi, go
Like
ahead.
I said, okay, okay. Like I said, is a call to action aim to transform our world. This call to action, like it has been said earlier, there are 17 which was being agreed upon in 2015 as a 2030 agenda. So there are different, there are 17 in number, which generally they are to protect the planet. These goals are to protect the planet, end poverty and inequality, ensure that all people enjoy health, justice and prosperity, uh, and to ensure that no one is left behind. Like I said, there are 17 of them. Uh, Go one, no poverty, zero hunger, and the rest like that. So that's a little I can say about it for now.
Wow, 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 wow. It's not little, you have actually done a lot. I want to clap for you. Well done for that. Yes. In fact, I can even say you can take this class. You have done very well. Thank you for that explanation. So, just as a background, the 1987, the United Nations Bronze Commission defined sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. What does that really mean? It means that whatever we think that we are doing now, we should do it in such a way that in the future, the people who will come after us, they will still be able to do the same things and also do it better. You wonder why this Brundtland Commission. So Brundtland is the name of the former president of Norway, who was actually the one that was heading this commission instituted by the United Nations to talk about this sustainability. And at the UN General Assembly in 2015, world leaders came together and accepted these sustainable development goals, this sustainable development agenda. And as we have already mentioned, which we know, they are a set of 17 sustainable development goals, 16 actually, but the 17th is just for everyone to come together to ensure that we are able to achieve these goals that have been set. So the Sustainable Development Goals is actually a universal call to action. It is universal. Everybody should not be left behind. All hands should be on deck to ensure that we come together to end poverty, to protect the planet, and to ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Making them work is our responsibility. So it's not just what governments are supposed to do. You and I, we all have a role to play in ensuring that these sustainable development goals are achieved. So these sustainable development goals are known as the global goals, and they are part of the Sustainable Development Agenda, a universal call to action. They aim to end poverty, protect the planet, ensure peace and prosperity for all, gender equality, water, sanitation, affordable energy, and everything that there is to it. I have a summary of it here. And I'll just present a short video for us to see. I hope I have the access so that we would look at the video. It's for about 5 minutes on what this Sustainable Development Goals means. Okay. I hope you can see my screen.
In September 2015,
Please
the
indicate
United
by
Nations
raise
made
of hands.
history when 193 member states unanimously adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, that serve as the centerpiece of its full 2015 development agenda. The goals are no poverty, end poverty in all its forms everywhere, zero hunger, end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. Good health and well-being, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Quality education, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education, and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Gender equality, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Clean water and sanitation, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Affordable and clean energy, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Decent work and economic growth, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Reduced inequalities. Reduce income inequality within and among countries. Sustainable cities and communities. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Responsible consumption and production. Ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Climate action. Take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts by regulating emissions and promoting developments in renewable energy. Life below water. Conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Life on land. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. Promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. Provide access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Partnerships for the goals. Strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Learn.
Okay, so those are the 17 development goals, SDG goals, that the United Nations came up with. I want to just ask any of you, there are some that are actually things that we can do. So on our own as individuals, we can actually ensure that these sustainable development goals, they are not just left to the government alone. We can also participate to ensure that they are achieved by the year 2030 as proposed. Let me just go back to my screen. So these SDG goals, they also have targets. We're not just saying that we should achieve these goals, but in the process of achieving it, how do we measure that these goals have been achieved? Because it's one thing to propose goals, and it's another thing to ensure that there are indicators, there are things that we can actually do as a community, as individuals, as a nation. What are these targets? So each of these goals have 169 targets in total and 230 indicators. These targets, they are used to measure progress on the targets. You know, if you're setting an objective, what we call SMART objectives, you must really have what you want to achieve and the timeline that we need to achieve it. So these SDG goals, they are smartly set. They have, targets, and they have a way of measuring that there is progress towards ensuring that those targets are met at the end of the year, which is actually 2030, at the end of the period, which is 2030. So the SDGs and their targets, they are integrated and indivisible. They are also global in nature and they are universally applicable. You cannot separate one from the other. For example, if you talk about end poverty, how can you end poverty if you don't have good institutions institutions. How can you end poverty if the infrastructure are not available? How will you ensure that there is infrastructure if you don't have a good cities? If you're not implementing things that will ensure that the environment is made suitable for you and also for the operations to thrive. So all the targets, they are global and they are integrated. When one is being achieved, it is very likely that another one is also going to be achieved. Though the United Nations is a global body, they have asked governments to set up their own national targets because these targets are really quite stretched, and not every country have the capacity to achieve these targets. So on a national level, we are expected to set targets that will enable us see progress towards those goals. Like in the UK now, they have set target that, when you're on any highway, you should have a lane for bicycles. So if you go to most of the streets in London now, you will see that a lane has been set aside for bicycles to be used, as part of the transportation system. And the reason why they have set this target is to reduce carbon emissions so that people can ride sustainably, because riding, apart from the exercising your body, you're also contributing to zero carbon emissions, and this also contributes to a reduction of carbon in the environment, which is one of the targets for SDGs. So this is just a summary. There are so many, 169. We cannot really look at all of them. But the SDG one, which is like end poverty, it has 7 targets. SDG 2, which is zero hunger, has 8 targets. Good health and well-being has 13 targets, while quality education has 10 targets. So if you look at it, all the SDG goals, they have individual targets. In total, they add up to 169. I have a link here to a resource that I would just use a sample for us to look at the one of the SDG goals and the targets that have been set for that goal. So just give me a minute to get to that particular website. Yes. So now we're looking at the 169 targets for each of the SDG goals. So if I look at the first one, which is no poverty. So in detail, it says end poverty in all its forms everywhere. And the target is that by 2030, extreme poverty must have been eradicated by all people everywhere. And that target is currently measured as everybody should not earn less than $1.25 a day. In Nigeria, I'm not sure we are there yet. We all know what the foreign exchange is saying now. But this target is really very low, because you can imagine somebody in America, for example, what can $1 a day do? They are far, far ahead of this target. But because not all nations have the same capital, the same earnings, income streams, not everybody is able to achieve it. But they have set this as a very minimum, so that at the end of every month, it is expected that you shouldn't get more than $50 a day as an individual. So that is what the target is, in order for all nations of the world to end poverty. The second target is that by 2030, we should reduce at least by half the proportion of men, women, and children of all ages living in poverty in all its dimensions. So if, for example, as at today, Nigeria has estimated that about maybe 50% of its population is in poverty, that they are earning less than $1.25 per day. The SDG goals is also saying that you should reduce that percentage by half, so that by 2030, you may not have gotten to everybody getting $1.25 per day, but we can see progress. And if you're able to achieve half, it means that you can still do enough to achieve up to that 2030, probably up to that 1.25, probably in another 5 more years. So when there is progress, then we know that we are all working towards that goal. And that is how it is tracked. And this tracking, because there is an organization, the United Nations, there's a committee that has been formed. And most of these countries are members of the committee. And they actually look at the traction that each country has, gone in terms of achieving these goals. The third one for that end poverty, or no poverty, is for you to implement nationally appropriate social protection systems and measures for all, including floors, so that by 2030, you achieve sustainable coverage. I think that's what I mentioned before. You should put systems in place to ensure that by 2030, at least you would have achieved a substantial coverage, not 100%, especially for a country like Nigeria, but to a large extent. Then by 2030, ensure that all men and women, in particular the poor and the vulnerable, remember that this goal says end poverty. So by 2030, ensure that all men and women, in particular the poor and the vulnerable, have rights to equal resources, as well as access to basic services. So things like access to healthcare, access to water, access to electricity, those things will contribute to achieving the no poverty. So that's why it is said that these goals, they are all interwoven. Immediately you are achieving one, indirectly, you may also be achieving the other. The other target for this is for you to build resilience of the poor and those in vulnerable situations and reduce their exposure and vulnerability to climate-related extreme events and other social, economic, and environmental shocks and disasters. So that's what maybe the environmental protection agencies do. So if there's going to be like a flood, there's going to be extreme heat, there's going to be epidemic, government should put resources in place to ensure that the vulnerable are able to thrive and survive despite the economic or the natural disasters that may impact on them, because they cannot afford other protective measures to be able to ensure that they take care of themselves. So government is in the position to ensure that the vulnerable are well taken care of. So this is just for goal 1, and we have up to 16, so it is quite a lot, and the responsibility is on the government to ensure that all these goals are achieved. So I said I would just focus on one, but just for us to see that, each of these targets, they are really specific and they set timelines for them and they are measurable, so that nobody will say, oh, I don't even know what to do. It is very clearly spelled, and there are trainings and other engagements ongoing by different agencies of government, individuals, non-governmental institutions, to really bring these SDGs to life. An organization may decide to take just one, like Pro Ally now is doing education. It's also part of ensuring that these sustainable development goals is brought alive, and we are all involved in ensuring that it is achieved. There's also goals on gender equality, the goals on affordable clean energy, several others. They are all interwoven, ensuring that we are able to live a life that so that when we leave this planet, we would ensure that people who are coming after us, they are able to also enjoy what the resources that we have enjoyed. So you hear something about maybe life on land, for example, so like deforestation, for example, maybe all these companies that are into timber felling, it's also expected that immediately you are deforesting a particular, maybe 1 hectare of land, be sure that you are planting another 20 hectares, 30 hectares, so that you can replace what you are currently, taking away. That is what we call ensuring that you are able to leave the planet better for the people that are coming after you. Yeah, so I think we have talked about this, the SDG goals and their targets. We will take questions after the presentation. So please just put your questions down, and any area that you need clarification, we'll talk about it at the end of the session. Yeah, then I said we're going to talk about the role of energy. Energy is really very important. We all know that without energy, we can actually not be able to achieve more. So access to energy is really very important. Sustainable energy production, energy security and resilience, sustainable economic development, environmental protection, and climate action, enabling social development. So that's the key role that energy has to play. And energy is also called out in the Sustainable Development Goals, affordable and clean energy. That's goal 7. Because of the interrelated, the importance of the role of energy, we found out that whatever it is that we're going to do requires energy. For you to be able to like set up a small scale business, we all know that electricity is required. So the main thing for us as people in the STEM sector is how we can develop sustainable energy saving innovative products that can help the nation, help the individuals, help us, help our community, to be able to achieve some of these goals. Because if energy is available, then you can end poverty. You can provide infrastructure, you can provide sustainable cities. Then you can be able to educate people who will then be able to innovate further to provide most of these social services that we all require. So this is talking about the nexus. The nexus meaning the relationship between energy and SDG. So energy comes from the natural environment and ecosystem. It is the basis of human activities. It drives economic and socio-economic development. It is necessary for improving human conditions and well-being. Can you imagine a city without electricity? It's so difficult. I'm sure you will all know in Nigeria where everybody's complaining about the energy generation companies that they are not living to expectations. The cost of operation, setting up a small business, probably like a salon, even somebody who repairs tires. You need energy to be able to, live a good life, have a job, and be able to take care of yourself. So SDG 17 and SDG 7, they address affordable and clean energy, and they put forward the energy development goals, which contains 3 main targets for us to achieve by 2020. So ensuring universal, affordable access to clean energy, increasing substantially the share of renewable energy. So renewable energy, things like solar, things like wind turbines, powering big mechanical implements with wind, with solar energy. Those are the things that can, help us to achieve our sustainable development goals. We also like The target is also doubling the growth rates of improvement in energy efficiency in the short term. So we are expected to look at things that will ensure that energy is adequately provided for all in a way that will ensure that all the goals are achieved. I just have a few examples of some innovations in energy in some of the SDGs that has been found to be sustainable and are in use right now. The United Nations, they have a report called the Spark, Scale and Sustain, where you're expected to have that spark of innovation. When you get it, you start it, you scale it to maybe where more than one person, a community can use, and then you are able to sustain it. So in that report, there's an innovation on how cows were converted to kilowatts. And I'm sure a lot of you here will understand. It's not as if maybe a cow has now transformed to, kilowatts energy. No, but things like the cow dung, they collected quite a huge sample of it. There's a an abattoir, so to say, in Ibadan area of Nigeria, where they were having this issue of how they built a waste treatment plant, but the stench and everything that was coming out of it, made the environment so unclean. But somebody came up with this innovation that they can actually convert the energy coming out of this waste to what can be used to sustain life. So what they did was to involve the biogas technology. And that biogas technology, there are so many details around it, but at the end of the day, it converts biological waste into energy that can be used to improve the environment. So when they did that conversion, they were able to use the energy, which was like gas, that came out of this conversion. So for cooking in that particular community, for cooking, for powering small implements like the light bulb. So that was actually an innovation of converting waste from cows into using it to generate light or energy in the homes of that community in the Ibadan area. Then if you look at it on a wider scale, in Scotland, where they use wind turbines to power, they call them platforms in the sea, where to generate electricity that will power natural gas rigs, so that is really like a very powerful implementation or innovation that the Scottish government brought to play. So this is just two of the examples. Then now on how we can incorporate these SDGs into our lives. We have like 3 levels. Level 1, meaning that, on a small scale, what can we as individuals do? We can incorporate these SDGs into our life, and we can ensure it is achieved without really going into giant projects. The little that we do, will help to ensure that SDGs are incorporated into our daily lives. Something as simple as plugging your electric appliances and turning them off completely when they are not in use. It can help to conserve energy, and then you will be achieving the SDG goals on energy conservation. So these are just level 1 things that you can do, So something like don't print. When you see something online, instead of printing, you can just jot it down on the books, because when you print, you waste paper, you waste energy by, printing. So these are some level 1 things that you can do. Then some level 2 things at all, as well, composting your food scraps. That's instead of throwing your food inside the dustbin, you can put it on the ground. Before you know it, it turns to manure that you can use in your gardens. So these are some of the level 2 things that you can do. You can, for mothers, instead of using diaper, You can use sustainable clothes, to wrap your babies, and that can save you cost, and it is renewable, and it helps the environment as well. Yeah, you can also install solar panels in your house. This will reduce your electricity bills. I think that is also what everybody is trying to adopt now with the crazy bills that we are getting. This will help to reduce your electricity bills. And yeah, so these are some of them. And then level 3, I talked about the use of bicycles initially in the UK. So you can use your bike instead of entering vehicles that use fossil fuels, which affects the environment. Then instead of using bottled water, throwing the dirt, which further affects the environment, you can use a renewable bottle that you can use the water day in, day out. You don't have to dispose everything. So these are some things that you can do. Then the level 5 one, like now, mentoring young people. This is also part of SDG goals achievement, because when you mentor somebody, you're creating a brighter future for him, educating that person. So these are some of the little things that we can do by incorporating SDGs into lives. So, in summary, how can you contribute to SDG goals? Donate what you don't use. Waste less food and support local farmers. Get yourselves and your family vaccinated. Help educate children in your community. Empower women and girls around you. Promote equality. Avoid wasting water. These are things on the personal level that you and I can do to ensure that the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria, we may not achieve it in full, but a little contribution from you and I will ensure that these goals are achieved. That's the end from me. Thank you very much for listening. I will take your questions, comments, contribution. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions, contribution?
Before we take questions, can we please appreciate our faculty? A round of applause, a thumbs up, a love. Thank you, super. Thank you so much, Ms. Joy, for this. Really appreciate it. Okay, we have a few minutes for questions. Can we take questions now? Ibukun, please go ahead.
Sorry, Mother, that was a mistake one. Sorry, I don't have a question.
Okay, you wanted to clap. So do we understand it, or can she ask you one question? Yeah?
Okay, let me ask a
Maybe you
question
ask
so
them
that
one
it
question.
can be, so that it can be interactive. Okay, I talked about end poverty as one of the SDG goals. Can anybody just talk about any of the SDG goals? So, for example, gender equality. What do you think you can do to entrench gender equality in your local community? I'm not saying in Nigeria now, maybe in your local community, your house, in your family. Can anybody just give an example of what you can do, to entrench gender equality? I'm looking at the ladies now, or maybe the guys. No pressure. You can just unmute and just say something. It's all to contribute to the discussion.
Okay. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Pelumi.
Pelumi, thank you for
Yes.
speaking. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. So in my community, I can support women's rights and also like educate them on their rights so that some people don't even know if they are treated unequally, they just feel like it's a natural way since men are above women. So we could educate women on their rights and things that they can do, support women's education in the local parastatals.
Thank you very much, Pelumi, for that. Yes. And you actually mentioned that some women don't even know whether they are being abused or not, because this is what they have seen from generation to generation, and they assume that it is right. So really, yes, advocating for the rights of women, educating them to let them know and be aware and be able to take action to improve their rights. So in a community, you find that maybe women are not allowed to buy land. You have to take permission from your husband to buy land. Those are things that actually limit the progress of the woman. So if we keep advocating, letting them know that they have a right, then there's equality. That gap is gradually being bridged. Thank you very much, Pelumi. Ibuku, you want to say something? Your hand is raised.
Yes, ma. I would like to say that we need to give the right information to children at the formative age and not make them see the fact that maybe a lady is better than a guy or a guy is better than a lady. So we need to pass the right information to children at early stage. That's what I'd like to say, ma.
Okay, thank you very much. That is also part of educating, people, women, both women and children, both men, everybody. Just keep educating your children so that they will grow up to appreciate the women in their environment. Thank you very much. Yes, Victor, you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Okay, ma. Thank you very much for the wonderful section. Like, I really love the teachings. Okay, mine is more like a thought because I've been really thinking about this whole gender equality. And from the definition he gave about sustainability, that sustainable uh, development goals, that's meeting the current need and as well, not compromising the future.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not thinking because I've seen several situations where this whole gender equality, it's as if the ladies are, it's more focused on female gender. I understand that the female gender is quite not really advantaged currently, but I'm thinking if the whole focus should maybe be on just the female gender, don't we think that at the point in future, it might create another disbalance where the male gender is not at an advantage again? This is my own thoughts. Like,
Thank you.
more like, because just like your last statement, the way we can contribute to these goals, you said empower women and girls to ensure gender equality. I didn't see any place that said boys, right? And for me, I'm just trying to kind of trying to reason far now and think, don't we think that it could cause a disbalance or something that will now reverse the whole process? It now in turn that, okay, men are now no longer at advantage and women are.
Victor,
This
you
whole
even
idea of creating
reinforcing
a
it.
balance.
Victor,
Thank
you
you
even
very much.
reinforced it since he's already identifying the problem. So she'll respond and then I'll lay on it. The fact that you reinforced it is already a challenge in itself.
So
So
thank you very
go ahead.
much, Victor, for that your perspective. Yes, the emphasis is on women, and this is because there has always been a gap. The gap between the men and the women has always been there, and the need for us to focus on women right now is to ensure that we bridge that gap. Even in the workplace, you find out that women doing the same job with a man, the man earns more. than the women. It is globally like known. Research has proved it. So that gap is there. And the need for us to put resources in place for us to bridge that gap. It was identified as at that time that, there is a gap. So put resources in place to ensure that that gap is bridged. When research now shows that we are now at par, where women are able to have the same equal opportunities with women in all aspects. Probably in US, maybe you will say that the disparity may be like 20%, 20%. But in Nigeria, maybe the gap is almost 100% or 95%. So the need for everybody to come together to bridge that gap between the men and the women, that is why emphasis is on them. And when we now find that the gap has been bridged, then the focus may not now be on only women again. It may now turn to another goal. As we say, these goals keep evolving. Before it was millennium goals, now it's sustainable development. So when things improve, another set of goals will be set. And if we then find that women are doing better than men, perhaps there will be a switch. So yeah, that's my response.
Right.
Thank you, ma. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Are you
you.
satisfied with that?
He laughs.
Okay, yes.
Okay, I don't want us to. We can discuss it after. She has a hard stop in 5 minutes. Any other question, and then we'll come back to this parity conversation. One more question. No more question.
Okay, just to mention that I have some project. I have like assignments. Perhaps it can be split into groups for the team. I have like 5 assignments, on water management and recycling program, for us to develop a program in our community, in our campus on how we can combat water or waste management in our environment. From an assignment on renewable energy, what we can do. You can propose solutions for renewable energy in your environment, probably in agric as well. What can you do? Can you create a garden? Or, what can you do in terms of agriculture? Then transportation, what can you do? What kind of solutions can you propose in your community to promote maybe cycling, reduce dependence on modes of transportation that impact on the environment. So I have 4. I will talk to the facilitator to put it in the Google Classroom for us to pick one, probably as a team or individuals, for us to do as an assignment to really ensure that we are embedding the sustainable goals in what we are doing. And this session, you're able to come up with something that you attending this program is able to contribute to the SDG goals. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I'm mindful of the time. Somebody's hand is up. Is this a question or a hand that was not raised down? 2 hands. Okay. One reaction, please, before we go. Yeah, Olaimi, can you make it quick? And then we have somebody on the pro line. Can we make this very quick? She has 3 minutes. Okay, I'll take that as a mistake. Okay.
Appreciation from the Nexus to her, so that we don't also distract that.
Can't hear you, Grace. So we'll need somebody to please give us the vote of thanks from the Nexus community. Grace, you can type, I mean, if it's a response question to her or an information. Someone who's giving our vote of thanks. Sorry, Grace.
Yes, I was calling your attention to the vote of thanks actually before our time elapses.
Oh, nice. Thank you all. We're waiting. We're not going to beg for vote of thanks, gentlemen and ladies.
Okay, good afternoon, ma. My name is Victor Kilichi Ahaji, a graduate of Federal University of Technology and a Nexus. Okay, I would like to really appreciate you on behalf of Nexus Community Cohort for this wonderful section. You really did amazing delivering. We appreciate you for teaching us, impacting us in the area of a sustainable development goal. Really, it's an area I really admire and love to continue working in. And I also pray that the good Lord in his goodness continue to bless you for us. And we would love to have you around once more again. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly for having me. I appreciate it, and I hope to be here next time when called upon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. I'll be in touch with you later. But I'm happy that we finished right on the time.
Thank you. Bye.
Right. Thank you.